Okay, all right. So I am Dr. Santo Riva. This is the What Do You Really Do
I love
podcast,
it.
and we talk to people about what they really do because I don't know. I've always been like really fascinated by it. I know like talk to people and you ask them at least like well no still today be like what do you do and they'll tell me like some name and it's like what does that actually mean, and then as like now that I'm a business owner, like I'm just fascinated by like other business owners and or people that like run businesses and like what it is that they really do because it just like their day to day is so different than and I think what most people actually think that like running a business would be like, and then and also as a business owner like there's things that you probably that you do like that you're like I don't want to give this part of my business up, and whether that's like the marketing or like the sales or like or whatever it is, but I don't know, I get insights from chatting with other people about this. So today we've got Tim Morrill here, and Tim, welcome, thank you for being here. I just got finished with his podcast and I did like a ton of talking and so
Coffee.
now I'm not going to talk as much, and we're gonna listen to Tim. So Tim, can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
What do I do? This might be one of the hardest ones because it's so dynamic and it changes. I would say the best way to sum it up is I'm a peak facilitator and I empower people. So peaking for competition is requires a symbiosis of a lot of different factors, and coming up as a classically trained strength and conditioning coach, I have a certain skill set in developing programming and a training system we call functional performance training that empowers athletes to peak 1 to 3 times per year by utilizing principles, protocols, and programming in a periodized fashion. So if you want to peak in October, what you're doing in January is very different from what you're doing in March and onward. And I just work hard to empower people to be the best that they can be. And really, you can also summarize it in educator, because I think the more that you can get people to understand these principles and these protocols and why we're doing this particular programming at whatever time it is, and the kind of delayed gratification that comes with peaking, it's just an education process. Yeah.
Okay. So when you talk about peak, we are talking about peak performance.
We're talking about showing up to championships in our best body and mind. Yes. Performing at the highest level that we are capable of. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Tell me, how did you get here?
Oh, goodness. So I started as a basketball player and I had a silly injury. All that I did in middle school and high school was dream of being the starting point guard on the varsity team. And I worked my way up to junior year. I was the starting point guard on my varsity team. 5 games in the season, I'm killing it. Everybody's like, Timmy's going to have this great season. And I was really leading the team. I go to do a crossover on the point guard that was trying to take my spot, and I don't know if he stuck his foot out or I was just clumsy, but broke my ankle and broke it really, really bad, and was immobilized for about 8 months. And then when I came out of the ankle, I didn't have a good physical therapist like you telling me like, yo, you need to get range of motion back in your ankle. Nobody told me that. And I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. So as soon as I got out of that boot, all I wanted to do was ride skateboards down hills really fast. So I just pushed only on my right side. And what this created was a very, very stiff calf and ankle on one side of my body, which came to bite me later when I was essentially the captain of my college ultimate team. And I was training really, really hard to be a good leader, and all these asymmetries in my body and all this silly training that I had done as a kid for basketball, things like thinking that it's all about the calves and never training the hips, wearing strength shoes. I used to wear those strength shoes with the big front, no heel. I essentially just was a mess. And that kind of sent me towards learning about training and how to create, symmetry in my body and fix myself. But at that same time, I also found myself as the captain of my college ultimate team. And we were kind of getting schooled, and I am a competitive person, and I would, excellence driven. And so I wanted to see how we could apply training within our team. So this was at Salisbury University in Maryland. And so I went to the smartest guy I knew about training at the time, which his name was Matthew Nine, who was actually the NSCA Strength Coach of the Year last year. Just an incredible human, and director of sports performance at Salisbury Sports Performance. And I was a senior at the time, and I was exercise science major, but I didn't know that strength and conditioning was actually a profession. All I knew about was like personal training and physical therapy, and I thought I wanted to be an occupational therapist. So I was actually interning as an occupational therapist, and when I went to Matt, and I'm like, hey, our frisbee team's getting injured, we're getting schooled, what can we do? He was like, well, dude, you like take my class in principles of exercise or of program design, and come intern with me instead of this occupational therapist. And so I did, and I started learning everything I could from him, and kind of transitioned to, hey, I want to be a strength and conditioning coach. I'm like, you're telling me I could do this for a living? This is awesome. Like, he showed me what a ladder was, and my mind was just blown. He taught me the FMS. He let me start working with field hockey and basketball and these different sports. And it was just like, this is who I am. It just clicked. So that was at Salisbury University. And he's like, dude, you got to get CSCS. So after college, went to a little trip to Peru, and then got CSCS, and then ended up, through kind of a little simple twist of fate, I ended up getting a job as a Division I strength coach at the University of Northern Iowa for grad school. So you get paid to, your grad school gets paid for in exchange for coaching the varsity athletes. And what was neat there is that's where I kind of got started as a curriculum developer, because I think they recognized that I was good at teaching early. And the first semester I was there, I had 4 classes that had already been taught that I had to learn their curriculum and teach. And then they're like, no, like, let's give you your own classes. So they gave me pretty much free reins to teach these 4 classes to undergraduates in conjunction with training varsity swimming, track and field, soccer, cross country, volleyball. And then I went down the football rabbit hole until I realized that it was, with the Division I varsity football, it's either you're all in on football or you're all out. And I kind of rubbed the strength coach, the head football coach, the wrong way when I told him I didn't want to travel with football. I loved my swimmers, I loved my soccer players, I loved track and field. So that was 2 years at the University of Northern Iowa, under the strength coach Jed Smith, who was absolutely incredible. And the one thing about that school is it's very founded on the Chinese method of Olympic weightlifting. And so it was my job to teach these methods to all these athletes. And it was great. It worked very well in that system. But me, as a very asymmetrical human and a frisbee player, and somebody that wants to give back to the sport that really made me who I am, it's probably 2011 when I was just doing a ton of snatching and all this stuff. And I'm like, this really isn't working on my body. Like, do I really need to do this? And then I came across the Strength Coach podcast, Michael Boyle, and he's talking about foam rolling, and he's talking about FMS, and he's talking about maybe we don't need the back squat and all these things. And I'm like, whoa, like, there's a whole nother world out there. So that summer before I left Iowa, I went out to the NSCA, the National Strength and Conditioning Association, in Colorado Springs, and was fortunate enough to intern under the founder of the association. His name's Boyd Epley, who was the first ever paid strength and conditioning coach at the University of Nebraska back in the 60s. And this guy is just kind of known as the godfather of strength and conditioning. And that was a huge blessing. So between Boyd and Jed, just these legends in the industry, they really got me thinking big. And I remember Boyd saying to me once, he's like, Tim, one of the biggest mistakes I made is not thinking big enough. He's like, I called this thing the National Strength and Conditioning Association. He's like, if I was thinking big enough, it would have been the International Strength and Conditioning Association. So I was very fortunate enough. They say, like, stand on the shoulders of giants. I had a couple great mentors, Matt, Boyd, and Jed early on. And then when I found Mike, I was just like, I got to get around Mike. So through some mutual connections, I went out and to Boston and did a little summer internship, did a nice job. And so they said, hey, we're opening, Mike and Bob, the owners, they said, hey, we're opening this facility, our third facility up in Haverhill, and you've done a nice job. Like, we want you to run this facility. So essentially, I ran a Mike Bullis strength and conditioning for 2 years up in Haverhill, and then also commuted to their other gyms. And that was the time that I came across what we call the Iron Squad or the Humilla Squad, which is Boston Brute Squad and Boston Ironside, which are legendary ultimate teams out of Boston, who, because ultimate is a very amateur sport, these teams, it is like constant compromise, taking very formal strength and conditioning and trying to apply it to an amateur sport. Especially when I come from a Division I university where it's like the athletes have all the resources, they have to train, they're on scholarship, all the team is there, there's no excuses, and they just get it done. And then they've got their athletic trainers, and they've got just a really good model. So I always felt like trying to apply that to ultimate was like, kind of hard. But Boston Ironside and Brute Squad essentially allowed me, they wanted to be champions. So they allowed me to apply my skill set on them. And that was 2012, 2013 in Boston. And just starting to work with those teams out at Harvard, and then starting to get my business going where, because ultimate's an amateur sport, the training is kind of new and the sport needs it. So I started like getting a lot of clinic inquiries. They want you to go to Europe. They want you to go to Newfoundland. They want you to go all over the place. So between 2012, when I started the LLC with Morrill Performance, and moved to Boston, and today I've taught MPFPT, or my curriculum, in 22 countries around the world. And I've also started a frisbee team called Humilla Swag, which is a team that I play for. And one of the reasons I did that is I wanted to play with the athletes that I was training and really see what happens if we can put together the most explosive and efficient beach ultimate team that's ever been created by applying these methods. So I'm also a founder of Humilla Swag Beach Ultimate, and we're the 2-time national champions of USA Ultimate Beach Division. And there's a couple other things in there with, like, business-wise, what we do. We have about 500 athletes in our Team Builder, which is an app developed for collegiate strength and conditioning coaches to monitor the long-term progress of many teams. And because I started teaching this curriculum in about 2012, we've got a lot of athletes that have been with the system for a really long time. And in 2017, when we integrated Team Builder as our kind of third tier of membership on our online business, it's just been so cool to see, to really empower athletes around the globe to have a long-term model to apply this phase-by-phase training. And this past year, I kind of settled in Boston a little bit to do some work on some of those teams, the Humilla Squad and those teams. And that's where I would also do just go out and coach these athletes. Like every Thursday night, we had a group of Brute Squad who won the 3-time women's division national champions. So I would go there and be a practitioner, be a strength coach. But through spending a lot of time doing these things and studying a lot of rehab and RPR and bodywork stuff, I also have a little studio in Boston where I take clients for like rehab and bodywork and just kind of tune up stuff. So a lot of different things, and the podcast, and there's kind of like you've got a lot of things going on, and that's what makes you good at what you do. And there's a lot of wormholes we could go down with what I do.
Yeah, I don't even know where to go. I'm trying to put it all together right now. Okay, so
let me say this: I'm working towards writing the book on training for ultimate. So in order to do that, we need to have curriculum that is digestible and a framework to allow us to guide a conversation and operate under a consistent set of principles and a consistent set of terms. And that framework is what we do with all of our online clients. And that's what's called Morrill Performance, Functional Performance Training. And that will become the book, which will become kind of the website. And it's all very curriculumized, based around the 4 spheres of peak performance and then the 4 portals of functional performance training, which explaining that could give you a little more context around how the business works. But I'll throw it to you.
All right. Well, let me ask you this then. Today, like right now, maybe not this second, but like, what is it that you actually do? So you told us, you told us about how you got here, and I mean, what a story! I'm sure that there is so many stories inside of those stories. We went through this very quickly, but lots of names, and I'm sure like lots of learning going on. As you understand your role today for your business, what is it that you actually do?
I empower people, and I think empowerment is a combination of inspiration plus education. So it's my job to inspire people, and one of the ways that I do that is by actually going out and competing and trying to personify everything that I stand for. So like last year, I took the year off of competing, and to really build out the business and help with some of my stars and some of these athletes that really needed me, I believe, at the time, and kind of long-term investments. And this year I'm coming back to competition. So like right now I have a big tournament this weekend with and I'm playing with the favorites, the team called Sports Center. So I'm doing a lot of tune-up work on myself this week to try to go out and inspire people with my movement and with my aura next weekend at the tournament, and showing people that actually practice what I preach. And then the education part of it is just I'm constantly on Slack, which is kind of our forums, constantly on Instagram and texting, and DC will tell you, like, I'm constantly sending voice text to athletes all around the world, just trying to encourage and educate them on how to do these things without being spoon-fed. Because I found that the best athletes are the ones who really kind of, and this is a general statement, but athletes that don't have a big budget to be spoon-fed, the ones who actually learn the why behind things and can kind of make decisions based on the education and the principles, tend to have more success. So I try to facilitate that. So what do? I try to empower people via those two pieces: inspiration, cool. Education.
Do you have any staff underneath you, or is this you're running this whole thing?
We have 5 people on payroll.
Okay.
So I have essentially a COO, because we have 3 tiers of online membership. Okay. So we have the base level site, which is portal by portal, and then we have Peak Plus and Team Plus, which are portal integrated programming. And then we have the higher level tier of service, which is distance coaching. Okay. It's like we've got 3 coaches that do distance coaching, and then we've got a director of programs, because we've got all these calendars from athletes peaking at different times around the world. So Z's almost full time on moving athletes around different calendars and answering questions. And then all the back end stuff, we've got Jimmy, and then we've got a couple coaches. And then I also sometimes, if I need a coach or somebody, when I'm going out and doing a tour, I will bring a coach with me, and they get paid.
Cool. So tell me, who are you? Who are all these? Let's talk about these 3 tiers, because right, this online business, that's like the main thing, right? Who are the tiers for?
The basic portal by portal programs on the base level site is kind of a choose your own adventure. You can navigate these things by what you want to learn. So let me explain what the portals are quickly. Cool. So we think about everything as peak performance, and that's what's in the middle of this idea of the 4 spheres. And the 4 spheres are nutrition, lifestyle, SST, and FPT. The SST means sports skill training. So if you're a soccer player, you're practicing kicking. If you're a lacrosse player, it's, if you're a surfer, it could be any sport. But then the functional performance training is something that applies to almost all humans. And we break that sphere off. We have our model of functional performance training, which we break down into 4 qualities: movement quality, speed, agility, strength and power, and conditioning. And those are just separate conversations. Movement quality is what a lot of the rehab bodywork stuff goes into. Speed, agility are skills. So how do we accelerate, top end speed, change direction, defensive footwork? Those are all skills and patterns that we practice, and then eventually add reaction time on to make it true agility. Strength and power is just related to neuromuscular adaptation. And then conditioning is related to cardiorespiratory adaptation. So when athletes sign up for the base level site, they can say, okay, I'm the captain of my college team, or that's a good example. I need to The only chance that I have to integrate functional performance training is in the warm-ups. So I'm going to go into the speed and agility portal, and I'm going to reference speed agility 0, 1, 2 level programs, which have all the exercises and all the progressions mapped out so that that person can take that and empower their team by following our proven principles. And there's also that would be a leader, so a coach or a workout leader. There's also somebody that could say, hey, I just want to get strong. I have all my conditioning. I don't care about speed and agility. I just want to do a strength and power program right now. They can go into the strength and power portal and pull strength and power 0, 1, 2 and get started on the long-term process of progressing through to higher level programs. So it's for athletes, but it's also, because it's rooted in empowerment, it's also for just leaders of teams and coaches. If that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's awesome, actually, because it really, I think, solves a problem for somebody that just needs a lot of different direction, but they know the direction that they want to go, and they've got resources to sort of choose your own adventure. Like
that's the resources. But then there are going to be athletes that just need to be spoon-fed, want to be spoon-fed, and that's where we've taken the principles of periodization for cardiorespiratory adaptations are very different than the principles of periodization for speed and agility or for strength and power and neuromuscular adaptations. So we needed to start with periodizing these things and creating a guide from beginner level to advanced level within each of these 4 portals. But then over time, we've taken those and we've created portal integrated programming, which is what Peak Plus and Team Plus is, with the Team Builder app. So when somebody signs up for Peak Plus or Team Plus, they will be spoon-fed because they fill out the application and then they download Team Builder, and then they have their calendar that every day when they go to the gym, they can look at their calendar and it's just check boxes with the videos and a place where they can fill in their weights, and they can see in the corner, oh, my trap bar deadlift was 300. I'm doing a conversion to power phase. I need to be at 80%. So I need to take so-and-so number and do this. So that allows us to really empower athletes by somewhat spoon feeding them, but also just providing the workouts daily in their calendars so they know exactly what to do. And this is also very empowering to teams, because when we get a team on board, they can all kind of hold each other accountable because they're all getting the same workouts. And we have this thing called the team feed, so everybody can see the work that other athletes are doing in terms of getting PRs. And it creates a very healthy competition, but it also allows me to be a long-term strength and conditioning practitioner because I can monitor and see the loads that these athletes are moving and make, decisions like, hey, a lot of these athletes don't understand progressive overload. You can't just go from a 240 pound deadlift and then feel really good and pull 300 the next week because you're all fired up around caffeine. You need to follow the principles of adaptation around the nervous system and load progressively. So it allows us to monitor and see things like long-term progress. And like Brood Squad I mentioned earlier, a lot of them came back when we launched the thing in 2017, and the ones that have stuck with it, just seeing that old data of like, okay, we've got 65 pound hang cleans, and wow, somebody did a 135 pound trap bar deadlift. And now we've got athletes like hitting 250 pound trap bar deadlifts, and a lot of them are over 100 pound hang cleans, and it's just awesome to see the long-term process. And we have all that data, and that's what it comes down to, is like peak performance, being the best version of yourself, peaking, all of this. It's all about the process, and the process is long-term. And the more you can be bought into that process and understand that it kind of repeats itself with the same principles but at a higher level, the more you can understand that and go through these peaks and these processes, the more you can replicate them and have more success, the longer that you go. So it's pretty dynamic in that way.
So in a time where people can't pay attention to anything more than like 3 seconds and always want to like change things, how do you keep them bought in?
Phase by phase programming. I mean, we are relentless about making new videos and making sure that the athletes who've been with us, I mean, some of these athletes, on Brute Squad, for example, started with me in 2012, and now it's 2020. So like, how do you keep them? And I will admit, we've lost some of them because they've, like, the nature of business and having to get everything, having to learn, reflect, and then apply into the program. Some of them were so far ahead that's like, well, I need to go try something else because I'm getting bored. But for the bulk of them, we've been able to stay out ahead and constantly challenge them with new exercises, new progressions, and then just them knowing that it is about the process. And if we do this simple periodization model repeatedly, where we do what we call a slow strong phase, some eccentrics, isometrics, get strong in good positions, and then we do a little hypertrophy, or what we call swole strong, increase the cross section area of the muscle, and then we go into a little bit of a strength phase, and just classic, increase the load, decrease the volume, get strong, and then you convert to power. It just works, and we're winning, and it's, we see these athletes just outperforming other athletes. And I think when people see that, it helps them to be bought in. And then when they really trust me, because I'm relentless with staying out ahead and just taking the best care, just going and learning things and making sure that it all gets back to our Jamily, our community.
Jamily.
The Jam Fam. That's what it's about. I mean, it's that's what drives me. We got a family of people dedicated to trying to be the best they can. And like this idea of jam, kind of, we don't know exactly what it is yet, but it's, kind of peak flow state. And there's a lot of people that just want to experience peak flow state. And it happens to be kind of a frisbee thing / a, old school, like skateboarder, kind of original snowboarder, kind of Grom thing of just like, we just have it in our blood. We want to jam, so let's support each other and be a Jamily.
I love that. That's awesome. That's super awesome. I might borrow that.
I mean, y'all are Jamily, because
right.
I mean, we're all the same.
Do you write all the programming for it? Like, is this program is all you?
It's been a deep wormhole of programming through Google Docs and through taking a lot of athletes through a lot of these things, and also myself through these things, and then reflecting on what we can do better afterwards. And I generally facilitate that, but I've had a lot of education and things that have helped us to evolve the programming by delegating things. So like one time, I wasn't able to read in-depth triphasic training by Cal Dietz, but we knew we needed to do that. So one of our teammates, I was like, I need you to read this book and then report back what works. And then we started integrating more eccentrics and isometrics based on the way that Cal does it. And it was my job to put it into the program, but that was a team effort with somebody reading the book and me doing it. And then this guy Z, I call him the Sunflower, he was a distance coaching client of mine back in 2012 and 2013. And I am it's not that I'm not coachable, but I'm not the easiest person I'm an idealist, and I have my ways of doing things. And it just takes a certain kind of person to be able to kind of work with me, lead me. And this guy Z has been really good at leading me towards like, hey, you just finished this competition. We need to do this to get it back into the program. He asks the right questions, and he's become so knowledgeable over time that he really, when we're programming, we do it together. And Team Builder allows us to do it on another level. It's really cool. I can show you the back end someday. It's so neat how we can move things around and really develop the programming. So it's been a team effort, but I really am the facilitator. And now when it comes to programs, like with Z finally being on payroll, he's doing a lot of work to make sure that we get the best out to our clients.
How are you? So clients are putting their data in, right? How are you processing all that information, and or are you able to process that information and then use it to guide your programming?
We have Team Builder's really slick because it's developed for collegiate strength and conditioning coaches to monitor long-term progress. So there's all these little reports that you can run. You can run the completion report, you can run the PR report, you can run overall athletic assessment, you can look at a full team and see trends and who's doing what. And I I can't say that we do that with every single team because it would just be too much to manage. So we really try to empower these athletes to follow this. And we're there if ever the team leaders want to go over those things. But within every team, we try to create a team leader, or somebody that's really bought into kind of overseeing the process along with us and running those reports and looking at those things. We're able to do quickly, just depending on how deep the team wants to go. But there are certain teams that are really that we do that more consistently with, like the ones that are really dedicated to the process long term and are really applying it. So a team like Brute Squad, who's really, it's not the whole team, just there's a contingent of those athletes that are really bought in. And that's a team, for example, because their goal is to be the best team in the world. And I'm interested in that, just like Humiliswag's goal is to, be the best beach team, but it's not necessarily being about the best. It's about being just personifying the process and following our values and personifying those values, which with Humiliswag, it's spirit, humility, unity. But that allows us to really put the extra effort into those teams because they're the most dedicated. So it'd be kind of a waste of time because there's still a lot of athletes and people that just think it's a program and they just want to do the flavor of the week, and they'll come in and they don't understand that there's delayed gratification. You need to do this work in order to get to this, and they'll just come in for a little bit of time and then they'll go on to like something else. It's like, it's a long-term athlete development system. It's not just a program. And so there are some teams that we really go in deep with, and others that, we just try to do our best to empower them.
And I'm sure that goes along, I know it goes with individuals too, and that delayed gratification. And how do you make sure that the right people, this gets in the hands of the right people, right? Because you don't want people going around saying like, oh, that program didn't work for me, but like really it was just, they probably shouldn't have ever tried to do it in the first place because they weren't the right type of person.
Fortunately, we've never really I don't think we've ever had a bad review. If we've been really fortunate because we also have a pretty long-term, there's a lot of questions on the application that will make, if you're not dedicated, you're not going to make it through that application. Yeah. But that's different than the base level site, because somebody can go into the base level site, take one program and download it and then go apply that, and then they could say those things. But I mean, we've been doing this longer than anybody in the ultimate community, more relentless than anybody. We've developed a lot of the other businesses that are out there that are doing well. We've worked hard to develop talent and create other strength and conditioning coaches and performance coaches within it. So we've been doing it the longest, and we've been doing it the best, and we're the most relentless. So I think it's just very rare that we get a negative review.
Now, is this just specific for people that are in the ultimate community, or are other people using this for different sports teams?
With market, you can't have it all, and you can't niche marketing is a thing. And if we were to just say, hey, this is functional performance training in general, and it's for lacrosse players and this and that and the other thing, it wouldn't work quite as well. But in general, functional performance training is applicable, and our model is based on sprinting and changing direction and jumping high and reducing ACL injuries. So it works really well for field sports. Gotcha. So we do, I trained the goalie for the New England Revolution, but he isn't in team builder. He comes over just for body work and tune-up stuff. But then we have a couple other soccer players just in Somerville that are following the program because they know that it works for soccer as well. But in general, because we're so dedicated to the sport of ultimate, we're starting to really focus in on ultimate and make sure that all the principles are under our framework, and that it's going to allow us to write the book on training for ultimate. So Gotcha. It's because I said I was going to do that and the sport needs it. I'm dedicated, but it's also I've got there's some friends and family that I have that just want to move better, and they're in the program too. So it's for ultimate players, but it's not. And I'll say this, we did last year 12 phases of programming, 12 phases to reach a peak for the athletes that want to peak in October. 12 phases. So that's a 4-phase off season, a 4-phase preseason, and a 4-phase in season. During the in season and preseason, we did start to integrate disc skill stuff. So we were doing things, we're working on like stuff that's specific to ultimate, like being able to quick like do impulses, because that helps you kind of throw off the mark. So the more deep down the rabbit hole we get and the more support we get from the ultimate community, the more we want to give back to the ultimate community.
Cool. I love that. Who was super instrumental in getting you to where you are right now? One person.
One?
Yeah, give me one person.
In business or in strength and conditioning?
Just to...
I'd say the most empowering person was probably Jed Smith at Northern Iowa. But that's hard because Mike Boyle and Boyd Epley were right there too, but Jed really saw something in me and really put a lot of energy into me, so I'm probably the most grateful for Jed. And nobody's ever heard of him. He's one of these guys that's so dedicated to his community and to his craft that he's not doing podcasts. He's not out there speaking. He's just dedicated to his athletes at the University of Northern Iowa strength and conditioning. One of the most incredible humans anybody's ever seen, and nobody knows who he is because he's that dedicated. So I would probably say that. Or, Mama Bear. My mom was pretty awesome.
What's the best advice anyone's ever given you?
Probably just stand on the shoulders of giants. Just go to really smart people and try to learn from them and just take lessons and stand on their shoulders. Yeah,
there's something about learning from the source, and obviously everyone has their own story, that got them there. But it's great when you can connect with people that, with these giants that understand the value in bringing up everybody around them.
Right. Yeah. Master mentors. That and, passion breeds excellence, follow your passion kind of thing. Because traditionally they would say not to do that, traditional thinkers, but guys like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek and some of these people that have proven that you can follow your passion and monetize it. Tim Ferriss is another one, like reading that book, Crush It, and the 4-Hour Workweek really early in my career and making me rethink the whole traditional model of retirement and saving all your money and all these working a 9-to-5 and stuff, and instead looked at it as like, wow, you can work from anywhere and you can monetize your passion. And if you, just do the things that make you happy and work hard to apply these principles to build a business around it, and it is possible, even though it's risky and it's scary, it is possible. And I really credit probably Gary Vaynerchuk and Tim Ferriss for that, empowering me to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something about like concept, proof of concept of seeing somebody else do it. Mm-hmm. And, me and you, like, we're rare, people that actually like are doing this crazy thing of trying to start a business.
It is crazy. Yeah.
But, I don't know. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. You only live once. It's risk reward.
Yeah. Yeah. But it helps to see, it helps build that confidence, when you see that other people are doing it and you're like, fuck it, I could do it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even going into a podcast this way, like I don't get nervous quite as much, but like I'm realizing, because I've done this so many times, I used to get nervous. Like when I would go out to play a big beach ultimate game, like we played this big game on Sunday, the 3rd round. And in the past, before I had done that, a lot of times played against these elite players, many of which, not many, but a couple of which were my former clients. So now like they really are out to get me. I used to be nervous, but now it's like, wait, I've been here before. And then same thing with this morning. Like this is one of the first times I've come into a podcast without really feeling any nerves at all. Because it's like, I was looking at the podcast. I'm like, I've done this so many times. I've done a nice job. I can do this. And it really is just about reps and developing that confidence. Yeah. But there's going to be growing pains. Like it wasn't always like this. Yeah. You gotta get your feet wet and learn the hard way and fail a lot. And getting comfortable with failure, I think, is a big failure and rejection. I think there's a lot of that in what we do. And it's not, you can't let it, defeat you. You got to learn from it.
Yeah, a lot of vulnerability involved.
No doubt.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh, 5 years. I mean, I've learned that in business, you've got to constantly call audibles and things do change, but I would like to have the book out by then. I'd like to see Humiliswag continue to really inspire with just personifying our values. I'd like to be at 8 gold stars, which just means championships between my top teams. I would like to hopefully have a Zen farm. Not that I need to be at the Zen farm full time, but I need to create the space for the athletes to thrive. And I think Zen farms and eventually islands are good places for adaptation. So a Zen farm is just, and I've done this twice, kind of beta Zen farms, but it just makes sense to me if we want to facilitate peak performance. Let's have a place where we can sphere integrate really well. And that would require a place where we have a gym, we have field space and a clean environment. We have a garden and a place that we can grow our own vegetables. And then we have a place where we can host athletes. So think about if we're in the Olympics in 2028 and we have a great place with a full field ultimate, a great big facility to do the strength training, a place to host people, and then a really kind of communal space where everybody can contribute and develop for these training periods. I think that's a really great way to create positive adaptations and build community. So some people will be like, it's a commune. And it's like, well, not necessarily, but it's just sphere integration. And we did this in Ocean City, 2 little raised beds, a gym, and a house, but we were able to bring athletes in, really develop together and, sphere integrate. And then, thinking big, like Jed or Boyd taught me and, a lot of influences in my life. I tend to be the happiest when I'm barefoot in the ocean in the sunshine. And there's a reason for that physiologically. But then it just makes sense to me that we would, eventually want to have an island. And be able to sphere integrate on the island and big goals. Let's go.
I love it. Big goals. Big goals. I love that. All right. We talked about some of your favorite authors and people that were influential to you in their writings. Is there a book that you recommend, like a book that you typically recommend to people or that you've purchased for people frequently?
Totally. I think start with why. I mean, you mentioned Simon Sinek. People don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. And you talked about ego and bearing the ego and like that it's not about you, it's about the client. I think so many people get into this industry because like, oh, wow, I can get paid to train and like, I can work out all day and, I can make money, do this and drink my protein shakes and be a model. It's like, no, like the first rule of this is that's not about you. It's about your athletes or about your clients. And you need to be very deeply rooted in why you're doing what you're doing, especially if you're going into business, because you're going to get whacked. And if you're rooted in your why, if you know your why, then that's in the middle of the golden circle. And then the what and the how comes after that. And that idea of the golden circle by Simon Sinek was game changing. And then I think Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk, just like how to take your passion and turn it into income. And that book changed my life. And then the 4-Hour Workweek. I mean, still people don't want to read that book because they think that it's just about working less. It's nothing to do with working less. You can automate your processes and you don't have to be in an office every day to work. You can work in different cafes around the world and explore different things and create a lucrative business and still enjoy your life and not have to do the traditional career path of save money and then retire during the time when like you're not at your healthiest. Like what if you did a bunch of mini retirements early in your life when you are at your healthiest? And that kind of thought process, especially coming from pretty traditional family, really kind of helped me to think, wow, like I can do these things and it's okay. Other people are doing them, I didn't feel so lonely in it. I felt a little more empowered after reading those books. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then if you could sit down and eat lunch with anybody, who would it be? You asked me this earlier.
Yeah,
threw me off guard.
Yeah.
So now you knew it was gonna. Yeah, you knew it was gonna come right back at you.
I think it would probably be Jerry or Bob. Like, I've been very influenced by these leaders of bands who have really brought up a lot of other great musicians and empowered other people to be themselves, and but have done it sustainably and have done it in a vagabond fashion. And I don't mean that I'm going to be a vagabond forever, but I just admire a guy like Jerry Garcia, 40 years with the Grateful Dead and with other bands, Legion of Mary, Jerry Garcia Band. He's just done so many things. He's been so relentlessly dedicated to his craft, and he's built something, a body of work and a community. And you ask people, like, what is it about Jerry that people love? And it's like, well, obviously he's a great leader. He had good energy, but he was also just very like gentle and welcoming. And you kind of like, you look at him and you know he has your back. And that's that kind of person who can lead a band and create flow and do it for such a long period of time. I just have so many questions that I would want to ask, and I just like, it would be him and then Laird Hamilton is, and I will have lunch and train with Laird at some point, but Jerry's already gone on to wherever he's at, so it'd probably be those two. And then Bob Dylan, I don't think anymore, but he's another vagabond kind of Renaissance man that has done a lot of things that people thought were crazy, and he just kind of stayed committed to his craft and being himself. And I really admire a guy like that. And that's just because coming in here, you had Jerry, you had Fire in the Mountain playing, and that's kind of got me in that music mode. But that would probably be it. Unless I needed to go deep into like business, I'd probably like to talk to Richard Branson, see how he did it, talk to Gary Vaynerchuk. Elon's an interesting one. There's a lot of business leaders that I'd like to learn about how they tick and stuff. But if I had to pick one, it would be my soulmate, Jerry Garcia.
That's awesome. The Jerry Bear. All right, Tim, what do you want to plug? How can people find you? How can they find the program? Where are you at in the world?
It's just so easy, because what are we doing? We're training for ultimate. So you just type in www.trainingforultimate.com, and that's where you'll find us. And I think people need to understand that there are tiers of membership, and that you need to, we have open enrollments for Peak Plus, and it's the best thing that it's the best work that we've done, and we're just super proud of it. But we're also not super boasty, like constantly hammering the marketing. We don't do paid advertising. It's very like word of mouth. So check that out, and listen to the podcast, ask good questions.
What's the podcast?
Talking about performance.
Yeah. All right. You can find that where podcasts are found. Yeah,
we're on every platform, and then you can always email me, just morrillperformance@gmail.com, and I'm happy to help with anything from connecting people, finding interns for different facilities, to empowering people and helping out in business and things like that. So I just really feel I'm on this earth to help people. I think you probably feel the same. That's why we found this vehicle to do it. So anything that I can do to help you or your listeners, I'm always here, for everybody. So don't hesitate to reach out. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, great work. That was fun.
Yeah.